Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today I am going to go over my side of a conversation that I had with one of the wargaming devs. Now, as you may have noticed, fairly recently, the last couple of months, I've been playing War Thunder, and what this has done is it's taken me outside of the wargaming bubble. It's taken me outside of that bubble, and it's provided me with a broader perspective on how the gaming community in general perceives tank-related games. I know War Thunder's got aircraft and naval in it as well, but I've not I played a little bit of, I played close air support. I wouldn't quite call that air combat. But mainly I've been playing the ground battles, and obviously we play the ground battles in, well, the tanks. So I've had time to experience more than just one developer's take on a tank game, and this perspective has provided me with reason to ask a question, and we'll get to that question in a second. So Gaijin is the developer for War Thunder, and they advertise War Thunder as, and I quote, the most comprehensive, free-to-play, cross-platform MMO military game dedicated to aviation, armoured vehicles, and naval craft. So, that's Gaijin. Let's flick over to Wargaming. Wargaming advertise World of Tanks Modern Armour as team-based, free-to-play, with tanks inspired by the 20th century's most powerful vehicles. So, as you can see there, War Thunder is just generally, hey, we've got the most of everything. World of Tanks Modern Armour is specifically pushing the most powerful vehicles from the 20th century. So it's that side of both games that I'm going to focus on in this video. Both Cold War and War Thunder contain modern tanks, and the majority of the tanks in Cold War can also be found in War Thunder, and that's something that I've found quite interesting, because you'll play one version of a tank in World of Tanks and you'll think, oh, this vehicle is terrible, and then you'll play it in War Thunder and you think, oh, this is actually quite good. So it's not really about the vehicle, it's not a realistic representation of the vehicle, it's just one dev does it slightly differently to the other dev, and it's interesting to have that perspective. But a lot of the vehicles that are in Cold War obviously are in War Thunder, so there's a lot of crossover here. If you want to play the TCM AGS, it's in Cold War, it's also in War Thunder, so you have your choice. And it's that right there that motivates my question. Why should I, or anybody else, when given the option, play World of Tanks Modern Armour when War Thunder is also there? And I suppose, flip this over to the other side, you could ask Gaijin, why should we play your game when World of Tanks Modern Armour is here? But for this video, we'll focus on the wargaming side. So, why should I play your game, wargaming? Why should anybody play your game when there is another one out there? The reason I'm asking this is because I feel that World of Tanks Modern Armour is suffering from an identity crisis. So for years, World of Tanks had its own arena. It was never a realistic tank game, and it never tried to be a realistic tank game, and I don't think anybody ever expected it to be realistic. I don't think anybody's ever, I mean, I'm sure some people have at the very beginning, but if you're 3-4 years into the game, you're not thinking, oh, this isn't realistic, because you're just adapting to the game mechanics. So in that sense, it's had its own space in the market. And Cold War came in spring of 2021, and with it came True Vision. The introduction of Cold War was the first time wargaming stepped away from their established game mechanics. Up until then, World of Tanks was always just World War II-ish vehicles up until tier 10, and those vehicles were played in a game environment where hit points were present, modules could be fixed with the press of a button, and you had your own unique vision mechanics, detection range, spotting ranges, concealment, all this unique stuff to World of Tanks. But Cold War was the first time modern tanks became available in a World of Tanks game, and overnight, with the introduction of the True Vision mechanics, World of Tanks went from having its own unique defined boundary in the gaming space to, well, now you're sharing a space, because War Thunder existed, and it still exists. War Thunder was no longer the only successful modern tank. Well, it was no longer the only modern tank game available by a successful developer. And Cold War brought World of Tanks into the modern tank space, and they changed a lot with Cold War. And this is what motivates my question. You're now sharing a space with Gaijin, and what are you doing to set yourself apart from Gaijin? I know there is... Well, let's back up a little bit. Where are we heading with this? Because we've got... It's World of Tanks. You've still got modules that can be repaired with one press of a button. You've still got hit points. But now we're kind of straying away from what World of Tanks is traditionally, because we've got True Vision. And now that's a new direction. And this new direction is in competition with Gaijin. So are we heading towards a new type of World of Tanks? Are we heading towards a completely new game altogether? Or are we sticking with the more traditional... Are we heading a new direction and trying to challenge War Thunder? Or are we trying to fall back into the World of Tanks sort of template World of Tanks mold, where vehicles have their roles and the such? It's that's motivating my question. Where are we heading, and what are you doing to set yourself apart from the competition? You've got wargaming, you've got modern tanks, so do they. You've got realistic vision mechanics, so do they. Why should I play your modern tanks over Gaijin's? And this is a serious question, because War Thunder is not a perfect game. I've been playing it long enough now to realize that it's not a perfect game. The community, the War Thunder community, they complain about the same things that the World of Tanks community complain about. Map rotation, tank balance, teams. All this stuff is the same over there as it is here. That's not unique to wargaming. And I do genuinely believe that World of Tanks could challenge War Thunder in the modern tank arena. So that's how I feel about the game and its potential future, but I'm not yet convinced that wargaming have an answer to this. Maybe they do. They've just not said anything. But I'm just wanting to broach the subject just to bring it into the spotlight slightly, because it's an area of conversation that I would like to have a better idea of where the game is heading, because sometimes it feels a little bit reactive rather than proactive. Right, so far, we'll cut that conversation there. So far, we've been talking at a very high level about the game. I now want to talk about a more detailed and more in-depth topic, and that is the subject of realism and reality. Both Wargaming Gaijin talk about realism and reality, and it's this aspect of the War Thunder community that makes it slightly insane. And I'm pretty sure most of you have heard that the War Thunder community is famous for leaking classified documents. So they take realism and reality, they take it to an extreme level that is just not seen in the World of Tanks community. We don't have that problem in the World of Tanks community. So that's the level of realism that War Thunder are dealing with, and that's what makes them slightly insane. But during conversations with the wargaming devs, and when asked to explain certain in-game experiences, i.e. shots bouncing or doing no damage, I have heard this fallback answer more than once. Well, that can and does happen in real life. And this is we're now at the bones of what I want to talk about here. You might be right. That might be true. But you're a dev for an arcade tank game, and your game doesn't even try to replicate reality. So why are we using the reality argument to explain an arcade game? The issue I have with the realism argument is you've got to be very, very careful with it, especially when your game is known for being 100% arcade. The game is based entirely on arcade algorithms and RNG. Every vehicle interaction is based on the mathematics that you've programmed into the game. So in effect, every interaction can be explained, and saying that it can happen in real life, that's another part of what's caused me to make this video. And this is where I want to tie it into the previous topic of where are we heading? You've got an arcade tank game, but you're justifying things in the game by talking about reality. So are we heading towards reality? Or are we sticking to arcade? Like, which one is it? That's what I'm getting at here. And let's, for the sake of argument, let's talk reality. So a 50 caliber machine gun round, a 50 caliber round, can penetrate and knock out a weasel. And I have done this in War Thunder. It is possible to do that. And ex-service members can confirm that this is exactly what would happen if you shot a 50 cal at a weasel. The crew inside would not be in good shape. The vehicle would get knocked out. In your game, Wargaming, a 120mm armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot round is not only incapable of killing a weasel with one shot, but it will sometimes bounce off a weasel. So, we're talking reality. Okay, alright, well, let's talk reality. It can happen in real life. Alright, are we going to see the game alter so that a weasel dies with one shot? And is that then going to take the game in a whole new direction, where we will become more like War Thunder, where vehicles are a one-shot, potential one-shot, couple of shots and you're dead? Is that where we're going? Or are we sticking to the arcade style of gameplay? And this is where I want to make the point. Please be very careful with the realism argument, because in your arcade game, falling back on reality, it feels like a it is a non-answer to the question, essentially, because I'm asking you what's happening in your game mechanics to explain a 120mm fin bouncing off 5mm of armor, and for you to turn to me and say, oh well, it could happen in reality. It's like, well, yeah, if we're talking about War Thunder, then we've got a serious conversation to be had there, because they're trying to emulate reality. But in your game, that's not what's happening. So please don't fall back on reality to explain your game. That feels like a very just it can happen. Just move along. I would prefer it if you were to go away, figure out why some nonsensical things happen in your game, and fix it. I would rather that than try to link the arcade tank game to reality. And that point there is really what caused me to ask my initial question. Your game is an arcade game, and it's entered the realms of reality ever so slightly because of Cold War and True Vision. You dipped your toes into the realms of reality, and you've now got a game that has the potential to challenge War Thunder. And this isn't just me saying this. I've read a couple of comments since I've been playing both games. I think I've been drawing in War Thunder players. I've been obviously got World of Tanks players, and there's been some crossover in the conversation. And I've seen a couple of times people saying that they feel this game has got potential. It's like, you can enjoy War Thunder, that's fine, I do enjoy it, but sometimes it's just too intense. Sometimes it's just a little bit too much. It's too much to handle if you want to relax, because it can be very intense. And people are saying they can feel there's potential here. There's something here. There's untapped potential here, and this is where I feel that this is where I see the identity crisis. Because either double down on the arcade gameplay and leave realism out of it, or stick to the stick to the original mold, leave realism out of it, stick to the original mold of what you've developed over the last, I don't know how old it's World of Tanks, 10 years I think it is, over 10 years now, and stick to that mold where tanks have hit points, you can repair modules with a press of a button, and you've got the traditional roles of vehicles, heavies, mediums, lights, tank destroyers, that sort of thing. Or go down your own unique realism route where tanks are knocked out with as little as one shot. Have a unique take on small, lightly armored vehicles that are vulnerable to machine gun fire. This is the difficult side, because this is you're essentially, we're describing War Thunder, exactly what I've just described there. So you want to have your own unique spin on it, and I know it's helpful to provide solutions, but on this sort of scale, I feel this is more than just me. This would need to be a round table, right? We need to come up with some ideas, but I do like the idea of World of Tanks Modern Armor being a version of realism. In the first person shooter world, you've got Call of Duty, Battlefield, but then you've also got games like Squad. You've got games like Hell Let Loose. Hell Let Loose and Squad are hyper realistic. Tarkov even, it's hyper realistic. Battlefield, Call of Duty, Call of Duty especially, very arcade. Battlefield a little bit more arcade. War Thunder is the Tarkov and Squad. I'd like to see World of Tanks be the Battlefield of the tank world. Exactly what that would look like, I don't know, but the sense I get is that the Cold War mode is stuck in limbo between wanting to be World of Tanks and trying to be something new. And it feels that's where the untapped potential is, and that Battlefield analogy is about as good as I can make it right now. But I really do feel that this game has potential to challenge Gaijin, and I would love to see that, because right now I don't think the game can fit in both worlds. I don't think Cold War can be World of Tanks but also be a challenger to War Thunder. That's my take on it. That's how I feel, and this is where we've come back all the way around to full circle. What is your game trying to be? Why should I or anybody else play your modern tanks over Gaijin's? Alright guys, that's all I've got for this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave it a like, if not a dislike. A dislike. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.